across the way on ISURUS, who will have the second pick. As I mentioned, Beltway and Dalon played for KLG earlier, and then Nozix was there with a couple of other players at Worlds last year, not just Masters. And then here at Valorous, you know, these guys also have been playing a lot together. Byrock and Hadobin, Taco, you were mentioning how strong these players are together.
Oh, most definitely. Byrock is somebody who's actually pretty notorious for having that heavily aggressive play style. He will tend to favor towards those bots, Susano, Awilish picks, and then not to mention that Byrock also plays pretty heavily off of his solo laner, actually, Cheetah.
And Cheetah, so Crash Course, that's the guy you're going to be watching. Cheetah is going to be the hard carry for this team, most likely, if everything goes the way the regular season has for Valorous. A lot of strength coming out of that solo lane, specifically for Valorous, where, as I said, ISURUS a little bit more spread out. SMITE in the jungle is nice to watch, but I think it's really about Nozix and Fragger.
Straight away, we can see with the bans that notes have been taken from the gauntlet from the last tournament, with Kabrakan and Chang'e being very NA-centric bans that dominated the NA gauntlet, and Saket and Zeus being EU bans that were very dominant in EU play. So it's nice to see that the homework's been done and that the previous LAN has really shaped what's going to come into this one.
Yeah, these two teams, these guys, as I said, the players have been around the block. It's one thing when you're the new region coming in and you have a bunch of players that just sort of beat up the Challenger Cup in your region. But these guys, like I said, number of international LAN appearances under their belts for both Valorous and ISURUS. Now here they are in their own region's finals, trying to see who will take on Black Dragons. And like I said, you can turn the cameras off, and this might as well be an NA draft. Kernanos will be making his appearance here at Masters. The Hunter, out of control, very strong. You're having a ball over there, Taco. What's up?
Oh, I absolutely love this god because I always mess around with his name where I'm just like Kernanos just for the fun of it. But I love this pick because it's such a heavily aggressive pick, especially for that duo lane should they opt to take it there. I would imagine it'd be predominantly a duo lane pick for the Hunter just because it's so much easier, and I think that it would just flow better with Force's playstyle.
The Sylvanas pick after the Kernanos is an interesting one. Kernanos is very dominant in lane, and I think maybe they've picked the Sylvanas to try wrestle control of him, because I don't think any ADC is quite as good as Kernanos in lane, and Sylvanas is obviously the best support for it, so maybe they're going to try play around that and shut him down early. Yeah,
I like the selection of Sylvanas, absolutely. The early Nemesis is very curious to me. Valorous is going to go ahead and pick this up, likely for their jungler, Byrock. He's very aggressive, and so that Nemesis kit, we've seen Mirage play it last season, where Nemesis kit by way of the double dash and the shield can help you if you're going to be very aggressive.
Both Nemesis and Poseidon seem to be picked, you know, after the Sylvanas, and I think that is with the intent to shut him down. Sylvanas is a very immobile character, and he's quite, you know, he's got a huge hitbox, and he's very easy to hit down, and a Nemesis just needs to ult in, Poseidon crack in, that's a dead Sylvanas every time. So ISURUS are going to have to be very careful with their positioning and how he plays into the mid game. And
I love the response from ISURUS right here. Bellona going to be able to shut down the basic attacks of not just the Hunter Kernanos, but Nemesis, the basic attack-oriented assassin in the jungle, and even Poseidon, although he's obviously about Whirlpool Kraken, man, you definitely do have that steroid on his second ability, so a lot of the basic attack prowess that Valorous has already brought to the table will be shut down.
With how often that we see mid laners leaning towards the Gem of Isolation, Fatalis builds on Poseidon, it's never a bad idea to have a god that can opt to take away those options from you.
Second round of bans here. ISURUS do not think that Valorous are going to be playing support Nemesis, so they take Fafnir off the table, and Scotty, well, she's just too strong. And since ISURUS does not have their selection of Hunter just yet, she'll be banned. And the Broken God, Osiris, he'll take a seat. Why do you think we see the Osiris ban?
It was a very smart decision from ISURUS to pick Bellona third. This is something that I like a lot when solo laners are willing to pick their god top 3 and then ban characters that would do well against it. And, you know, they banned the Fafnir. But Osiris was obviously targeted for the lane, and I think that's going to make sure that the solo lane of ISURUS is going to run the lane and really get pressure and hopefully the game for them.
Not to mention that Osiris is a very heavily aggressive god, and like we mentioned earlier, Cheetah loves those kind of early aggression gods. He wants to get online as soon as possible and completely bully his opponent. I wouldn't be surprised to see him lean towards even an Erlang, even though it's not as common. I mean, we have seen it a couple of times already here at LAN just from last week, but it is more suited towards that aggro playstyle.
Medusa here in the long lane, most likely for ISURUS. How does the matchup, Kernanos relatively new here, Taco, what's the matchup like, Medusa versus Kernanos?
I would say that that typically favors Kernanos in this setup just because of the fact that he has so much AoE on his clear, and it takes care of the wave pretty fast. I'm sure that Ataraxia probably feels the same way about it.
Yeah, I feel Kernanos in his current state is very much like Release Medusa when her poison spit was a longer range than it was right now, and you couldn't really avoid it. You know, if you were in the lane and she pressed her 2, you'd get hit by it. And Kernanos' 2 is in the similar effect. You can't really avoid it. If he wants to hit you with it, he's going to hit you with it. So it's going to be difficult for the ADC, for ISURUS to avoid that and stay in lane healthy.
Yeah, it works a lot like the Soul too as well, so you got to be careful of just the projectile comes and then it explodes and, oh, I didn't think I was in range, but surprised you absolutely are. To help that, or at least help the acid spray damage on Kernanos, Geb will be the selection for Valorous. I think that's just a fine and dandy pick. I don't really see any ups or downsides to picking the Geb here.
Geb is an interesting one. He's probably one of the worst supports you could have in lane right now. He doesn't really get pressure. He's not good at fighting, so it's going to be quite a challenge. Although I do like picking it with Kernanos because he makes up for Geb's weaknesses. So if they can look after each other, get Geb to the mid game, then they've got a really strong team fight draft that they could probably win the game with.
It is a duo lane after all, so you got to come back and help out Vamana, the big baby, in the short lane. But there it is. You mentioned it before. Nozic's going to be playing that Thoth, such a very strong character on a very good mid laner.
I'm very happy to see this. I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna pop off on that prediction alone that they have the Thoth. I'm a Noz fanboy. You know, I think he's gonna dominate this game. He's gonna pop off and get a lot of kills.
So Araxia thinks game 1's going to ISURUS. How you feeling, Taco?
Valorous. I'd have to give it to them. I like their draft, even though it's compensated very well between early and late.
I'm excited either way. Thoth for Nozic's on ISURUS, and Kernanos makes his competitive debut. It's game number 1 of the Latin American Regional Finals. On the horn is Toli and Aggro.
Thank you very much, guys on the desk. We're almost ready for Masters, man, but first we got to get through this Latin America Regional Championship. And Toli, you heard what Ataraxia said. He likes ISURUS' draft just because Nozick is on the Thoth. Are you on the same page?
Absolutely. Nozick on the Thoth. At Worlds, playing the Raw as well. This is his style, these high bursty mages, and I'm really excited to see him perform here in the Latin American Finals against Valorous. On the other side, it's going to be a Poseidon, which also has a lot of burst, and you can't forget that important cripple, which is going to shut down Hunbat's initiation.
That's true, and the Thoth. The Thoth is going to be punished a little bit there for his dash with that Poseidon Whirlpool, but as they mentioned on the desk, I love this Poseidon Nemesis pick right after ISURUS goes for the Sylvanas, just punishing that immobile Guardian early on, because as they mentioned on the desk, this Valorous roster has good early late game balance, and if they can punish that early game support that Daylon is playing the Sylvanas, it really catapults them towards the later stages.
There's been a lot of strategies where teams will basically try to prioritize a Guardian early on, and a lot of teams have adapted to that by going, for example, in Season 3, the beginning was Raijin, Nemesis, Bacchus, trying to shut down that one immobile Guardian, whether it was the Sylvanas, the Ymir. So Valorous getting a pretty aggressive strategy here with this Poseidon Nemesis. It should lead to some really early kills here against the Sylvanas. It makes it a little bit difficult to really get in position, especially before you're level 5 for that CC immunity.
Fragger and Daylon here are going to try and trade into Forza, who's all alone in this lane. First time we're seeing Kernanos in competitive play here, Toli. What does this character bring to a team?
The team fight control with just his ultimate alone is what makes it such a huge impact. The fact that you can turn everybody to a little piggy for 2 seconds. Now, granted, they're going to be running at their same movement speed. It's not going to hinder that, but just to be able to not do damage, throw out any abilities is a huge impact in team fights.
Beltway going to get a big bludgeon on that right-hand side, but he's the one taking the majority of the damage from Byrock and Cheetah. And Cheetah is going to confirm the first blood. Valorous, the first one's on the board.
The body blocks were real. Beltway getting the worser end of things. The Vamana and the Nemesis just out-pressuring the other side of it. The Hunbats and Bologna normally should be able to out-clear, especially with Bludgeon hitting multiple targets with that passive hammer.
Beltway definitely wanted to play that a little more aggressive than Smitero did, I think, there, Toli. Hunbats, not the best early game fighter, but as you mentioned, neither is Nemesis, and after that big bludgeon from Beltway, I'm with you. I thought he would get the better end of it. Either way, Valorous claims first blood and the enemy blue buff, and while that doesn't necessarily help Beltway's laning phase too much, Bologna not one of the more mana-demanding characters in the solo lane, it does hurt her in terms of just overall farm in the early game.
Also hurts her potential to be that big lane bully, especially against a Vamana that's not necessarily the best in the early game. However, though, despite the disadvantage that Bologna Beltway is experiencing for ISURUS, they're getting a little bit of an advantage in the dual lane because Fragger has been in a 2v1 situation to start things off. He's gotten the red buff of his own, now sitting at level 4 compared to Forza sitting at 3.
Do you like this idea from Valorous to focus down this left side and keep Cernunnos down, or would you rather see them play aggressive on that right-hand side?
I definitely would like to see this different styles here, where Fragger is constantly putting pressure on Cernunnos, Beldway getting his second death early on, Byrock just not letting go of that early death.
Bad news there if you're rooting for ISURUS. Beltway taking 2 spills early on. He already used teleport to get back to lane the first time. Still sitting at level 3. He's going to miss 2 waves here, Toli. Cheetah may hit 5 before Beltway even gets back to lane.
This is the dream start for any soul laner, especially a Vamana that struggles a little bit early game until he gets around level 6, where he can fully clear without any problems and then continue to bully you. So now with this huge advantage, the Vamana, he's not only going to be able to be the lane bully against Beltway, but he's going to be able to out-rotate this Bellona.
Not only that, but you could say the same for Nemesis. Byrock on this Nemesis, this is the dream scenario for him as well. He's gotten early pressure on that right-hand side for his solo laner. Hasn't even gotten his ultimate yet and has already been a part of both kills for his team. Now Daylon, who was already had to be nervous about this Nemesis lockdown potential, combined with Hadobin on this Poseidon, that's getting even worse every time that Byrock heads over to the solo side.
Just not done yet either. Still sticking around their right side. Hits level 5. Could look for some more pressure if Beltway ever decides to leave that tower. Still having his own speed buff after being able to invade the speed of ISURUS, grabbing his own, still applying more pressure. Just look at Cheetah.
So if you're Beltway in this scenario, you've taken 2 early deaths, do you like your jungler being here with you this early on, or are you saying, get out of my lane, I need this farm?
Well, at this point for ISURUS, it's basically the time for them to get their own buffs. Speed buff has respawned. That's why Byrock was in position to try to maybe bully out Beltway. Could potentially look for a blue buff invade, but ISURUS prepared themselves and not going to give up their speed buff 2 times in a row here.
Atterban and Hadobin are going to the left-hand side, not going to try and help this invade on the right. Instead, going to worry about those oracles on the left side, which are due to respawn soon enough. Forza has been pushed back pretty consistently early on by Fragger. Not seeing that early wave clear from Cernunnos quite yet, but as you mentioned, it was due to that that kind of split start where it was Daylon on this left-hand side, making sure that Fragger got himself an early lead in this lane.
Slightly different styles of builds as well, trying to rush that Transcendence is Forza, having more physical power than Fragger, but less mobility. And Forza on the Cernunnos, the dash is not the most reliable form of escape. It's a very fast pace, but it's not that long of a range.
Daylon almost was in a bit of danger there, but without the penetration boots, Hadobin decides to hold on to the Kraken, and I like that decision. A lot of your burst potential against Guardians early on really relies on having that innate penetration from the boots to cut through their base magical protection.
Still level 6 on the Sylvanas from Daylon. Elected to go for Shoes of Focus. Not something we're used to seeing out of these Guardian supports. So sometimes we'll see a lot of reinforced shoes to deal with a lot of the damage over time to build those protections from both physical and magical. But now, this means that Daylon is looking for more of a utility style, trying to spam all the heal.
And going for the shell instead of the meditation. Meditation receiving a recent nerf, so we could see some more supports going for different relics at the beginning of the game. Daylon already deciding to go for something different. Already has the heals in his kit, right? He doesn't need to have that burst heal because he already has it available to him with the Wisps. While as for Valorous, there is no sustain built into any of their gods' kits. So I think that's why we see Atterban decide to go for some healing to try and match that of Daylon.
Not only that, meditation is more beneficial at level 12 whenever your maximum health pool is higher anyway, so the shell is going to help him survive earlier on against this combination of this Nemesis Poseidon.
Almost 6 minutes in now. Valorous still up 2-0, but ISURUS has stemmed the bleeding for the time being. Definitely a good look for them as they took some early deaths on that right-hand side, specifically Beltway, both deaths on that right-hand side. But the Band-Aid has been applied, and ISURUS still treading water for the moment. And we talked about how Valorous has some late-game option in their draft, but you can absolutely say the same for ISURUS. I mean, Thoth in the late game is probably the most reliable mage in terms of safe damage output. Scylla, of course, is the one that always comes to mind when it comes to late-game mages, but Thoth is right there.
Don't forget the Hun Bats and the Medusa popping the steroid in the late game, especially if you do have crit and get some RNG in your favor. That could be an easy spill against a Guardian, not to mention Hun Bats in his passive has a little bit of crit. A fully built Hun Bats can do a lot of burst.
Cheetah in trouble on the right-hand side, trying to get out of his ultimate, but cannot get it off in time. SMITE picks up number 1 for Valorous early on in this game. Daylon in some trouble in the mid lane. There's the Kraken after the Divine Judgment, but he gets the Wrath of Terra off, and is going to be able to heal up thanks to the Wisps. Byrock survives courtesy of the shield coming out of Adderban, but he's in a lot of trouble as well.
Jumping away, SMITE under the tier 1 mid. Nazex cleaning up Byrock. Just unfortunate set of circumstances, committing all their forms of hard CC at the same time instead of trying to split it up, squeeze in an in-hand, and then look for more chain CC. We saw both of the cracking being used and the Cataclysm at the same time, and as a result, it kind of cancels each other out.
Not only that, but the Whirlpool was a little bit early there from Hadobin, so you didn't get that extra damage coming out of the Whirlpool ticks that may have spelled danger for Daylon. ISURUS evens the game now 2-2 as Byrock did fall on that right side jungle. Nazex was the one to pick him up on that in that mid lane. So ISURUS now actually in the lead after that poor start on that right-hand side. They're taking advantage of that mid 3v3 fight where that Sylvanas just comes up huge.
And it's also the vision from ISURUS. Oh, nice sneaky play from Fragger. This is what Medusas love to do. You push up the wave, you hide in the jungle because you channel up that Petrify, and as you're channeling it, you turn the corner on them. If they're clearing the wave, they're going to be facing you, and you can do a lot of damage there.
Forza takes an unfortunate spill on the left-hand side, and Fragger continues to push that lead that he and Daylon earned early on in the game. The gold lead now in ISURUS' favor, but not by much. 350 gold, nothing to write home about. But 2,000 experience is a little bit more significant. That means that a few people are going to be getting some levels over their opposition.
It's all about the timing of the deaths. Sure, Beltway died 2 times, but those were early deaths. That's when your respawn timer is not the longest anyway, so you'll get back to the lane relatively quickly, whereas if you die at level 9 or 10 or higher at this point, your respawn timers are going to be a lot longer, and the enemy team can take advantage of that.
Byrock already poked out a little bit, sitting at about 85% HP. Ward vision control definitely in ISURUS' favor, and because of that, they're going to start up the Gold Fury. Forza has his ultimate. Everyone on both teams has all of their ultimates. Going to try and make sure. Oh, great pull there from Daylon, but a quick Purification Beads gets Byrock out of that Wrath of Terra. Definitely a win there for Valorous, though.
It's special, but Forza did have to commit into his ultimate, thinking that the engagement was about to start. Starting the Gold Fury, though, ISURUS trying to look for the early objective. Not really too much commitment here, though. Still relying on that pull from Daylon.
Decent damage there out of Forza with his second ability. Nazex was thinking about charging that ultimate and shooting it through the enemy team, but the Meditation's popped, and Valorous is coming around the back. SMITE waiting to drop that Fear to Evil, and does. Cataclysm from Adderban doesn't hit anybody, and 2 already down. Make that 3. Valorous definitely did not pick the right engagement. Double kill for Fragger. 4 down now, and ISURUS turns their attention to the Gold Fury.
Valorous really wanted some sort of combination kill between that Nemesis Poseidon, but doing it under the tier 1 mid tower without any sort of real advantage. ISURUS capitalizing off of that in a 4 for nothing, being able to counter engage with the safety of the control from that tier 1 mid tower, grabbing the first Gold Fury of the game.
That was a decent idea there from Valorous, Toli, but the ward has fallen off since, but there was a red ward. ISURUS knew on that top left heart piece exactly what was happening. The Meditation popped to make sure everyone was ready to go. But then ISURUS did such a good job of spreading out. They didn't group up in that scenario.
Especially considering that the primary focus is Daylon. As long as you separate yourself away from your Guardian, you can sacrifice them. All you really need out of your Guardian is to pop the shell after the Nemesis ult anyway, and then look for that huge control from the Wrath of Terror, get off at least 1 Wisps, and if you can find a pull, sure, you did your job. Otherwise, you basically done your job already by absorbing every single cooldown from Valorous.
Valorous trying to get a little bit of gold back their way with this Portal Demon, and just spawned about 50 seconds ago. No one from ISURUS too close. Beltway thought about coming in to contest, but did not get there in time, so Valorous gets a little bit of gold recouped back to them after that bad team fight in the middle lane, but ISURUS still up 7-2 in kills and about 2,000 gold as well.
11 minutes in, so ISURUS, they're getting themselves a little bit of an advantage. It's not too much to snowball here. The question is, how do they extend it even further, and how does Valorous prevent that snowball from happening? Because the experience gap is where things get a little bit dicey for teams at this point of the game.
And even the fact that Cheetah and Byrock got a couple of kills on Beltway early on that right-hand side. Beltway is now ahead of Cheetah on that right, and he's going for Deathwalker's build. Looks like to be a Mystical Mail. Forza playing aggressive on the left, commits his dash, and around the back comes Hunbats. Easy cleanup kill there for SMITE. 3, 0, and 4 for the Hunbats. Top of the player damage charts as well.
Just look at the vision coming out of ISURUS. They had no fear of taking the 1v1 for Fragger, recognizing the fact that SMITE was right around the corner. This is kind of that boxing mentality that a lot of soul laners and hunters will have, where it's like, okay, he's boxing me, there might be a gank, there might not be a gank. Like, there's nothing really to prove at this point when you're a hunter still trying to finish your build.
And look at all the wards on that left-hand side as well. They're almost all red for ISURUS. On the right side, Valorous really controls the majority of the vision. But at this point, especially with that portal demon being down, Beltway and Cheetah are both basically unkillable at this stage, right? They're sitting at level 12, level 13. It's going to be difficult to find kills onto them, but the Hunters are a different story, and I think that's why we see ISURUS really prioritize warding that left.
But on the right side, SMITE, he ganks the left, instantly transitioning towards the right. Cheetah's just going to hug his tower, not really too worried about that as his ultimate is available, but Byrock on the left could get chased down. Nazex covers a lot of distance when he throws out that wall.
Without a doubt, Thoth definitely the long-range mage, and Nazex's damage is starting to really become relevant at this stage. Sitting at level 12, that hieroglyphic assault will be maxed out by now. And he's finished off the Book of Thoth, which basically you have to buy Book of Thoth. It's literally your character's book. You can't afford, he wouldn't be able to know what's going on without his book. He has to have it.
Oh, but blinking into the duel lane, Forza caught without the beats, having his Aegis. Byrock trying to find the counter engage. Nice little stun onto Byrock. Another counter Aegis. Not in position though, as Otterbahn doesn't have any sort of mobility to be able to catch up.
A beautifully timed Petrify there out of Fragger to give him the CC immunity so that he isn't turned into that pig. Byrock now in some trouble as Beltway's made the teleport in. He's got the Sunder as well. SMITE, no fear, no evil. Quite yet, he used it earlier on in that gank, and Otterban and Byrock going to be able to escape underneath their tower for the moment.
I love the play from Daylon, just taking one tower shot, trying to find a pull onto Byrock that doesn't have the purification beats available, using the whips though. Diving the tier 1 tower, Wrath of Terror even being used. Jungler goes down, still going for a second one though. Otterbahn, Eagles rally, Fragger gets a double.
Another double kill for Fragger. He's got 5 so far on the game, 5 kills. Cheetah teleports in, and is trying to make SMITE think twice about sticking around, but Daylon is here with the Wisps, and Cheetah's only level 13, having trouble fighting into the opposition. Daylon is able to sneak out of that Kraken courtesy of the Winged Blade that Hadobin just did not see before he popped his ult.
Really nice pickup from Daylon, trying to counter that because you have a huge health spike. Not only that, the passive of the Winged Blade gives you extra mobility whenever you do get slowed, so a lot of these Poseidons will opt to go for this Gem of Isolation, which will proc it, and if you're looking for that Whirlpool Kraken combination on your the enemy support, well, guess what? That's not happening any longer.
And not only that, but Byrock is basically the slow character. Nemesis just has bunches of slows in her kit. Cheetah has a slow in his kit as well. A lot of value going to be picked up with that Winged Blade. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw multiple members of ISURUS go for that item.
And it's not just being used defensively either. If it does get procced, now you're going to have a fast Sylvanas trying to charge at you, trying to find maybe multiple targets with the root, or finding somebody a little bit out of position just for a pull. We saw Daylon find a nice little clutch pull onto Byrock earlier on around that Gold Fury, and that's something that he can use, this Winged Blade, to try to look for more of these options again.
Daylon has had a really great game on this Sylvanas early on, absorbing a lot of cooldowns like you mentioned in that mid lane, but always seems to be in the right position. There under that tier 1 tower on the left side, hits both Byrock and Otterban with that Wrath of Terra and sets up the double kill for his Hunter, which is every support's dream, right? Setting up your Hunter for an easy double.
Especially when you don't die in the process. Having 6 assists, 0 kills, 0 deaths. This is the perfect stat line that you really want to see out of your support. Now finishing off that Heartward Amulet, trying to be a little bit more resilient against these Krakens. So far, so good for Daylon.
Really, really strong builds across the board from ISURUS. You see Beltway, he's finished off the most expensive part of Deathwalker's signature Bologna build, the Mark of the Vanguard into the Mystical Mail, but he's gone for the Sunder here, totally, just trying to augment any potential damage that ISURUS is going to be putting out. I don't know if this was necessarily needed, though. They've got plenty of damage already. Gold Fury below half HP. No one from Valorous even in the area code. That's going to go down easy peasy. ISURUS extend their gold lead above 5,000 gold. Beltway hits 3 with the Eagles rally, but is answered back with a Kraken. Hadobin makes Beltway pay, but the Soul Later did his job.
The rest of the team is here. Following up, the big baby goes down. Petrify onto Byrock, finding the kill, and just like that, getting the Gold Fury, getting a 2-for-1, and stealing away that portal game and great play from ISURUS. And it was also a nice tactical bait out of Bellway because not only did he sacrifice himself, but he absorbed 2 ultimates, one from Adobin and one from Forza.
That was big plays out of the solo laner. Sometimes sacrificing yourself for the good of the team is the right play. Certainly was there. All 3 deaths for ISURUS are onto their solo laner, but that's allowed the jungler, Hunbats, Kha'Zix, Fragger, they've all done a great job thus far of using that early pressure that they were able to get because all the pressure was on the right side of the map from Valorous.
Trying to take advantage of a player's disadvantage on Valorous, not able to really secure that tier 2 tower, but did a little bit of poke there. Going to be able to grab that one later on. ISURUS with a nice comfortable lead, sitting at about almost 7,000 gold. And this is the point in time where teams are starting to finish off their 4th and 5th items.
SMITE has the Furious Monkey Bounce available, but Atterban is the focus. Eagles rally, stuns him out of the rollout. Meditation gonna buy him a moment, and it does force out the Fear No Evil there from SMITE, so that's actually a pretty big play out of Atterban there.
It's a nice little idea, though, just to use it to confirm the kills, because sure, you have invested in ultimate, which has about a 70-second cooldown. You know, you have the Yonin's Wrath and the Hydra's Lament onto SMITE for that cooldown reduction, but those Gep shields are also very impactful in some of these team fights, so you're just going to look to maybe secure some farm here, looking for those mid-harpies and maybe a little bit more map control.
Byrock just able to dash out of the stun there for Kha'Zix. Atterban's already respawned, only level 11, so does have that advantage of having a pretty quick respawn timer, but he's got to get back to try and defend this Fire Giant from ISURUS, already about 50% HP. Hadobin nowhere close enough to use that Kraken. Kha'Zix has the ultimate available, but instead the focus is on the Cheetah. Fragger finds that kill. Final Judgment does come out there from Kha'Zix, but doesn't find a home. Fire Giant still leashed here, Tolly, and the Kraken knocks Fragger below 5% HP. ISURUS somehow secure the fire.
Finding the Fire Giant, but Fragger goes down. Byrock diving the backline. Daylon is in a lot of trouble as well. He's surrounded. Fear No Evil back online at Forza. The other Hunter taking a spill, still trying to find the Sylvanas. The Wisps come out, but diving too hard. Adobin sacrificing himself, and look at this, SMITE, he's not done yet.
He's still looking for the kill onto Atterban. There's the rollout and doesn't get blocked, but it doesn't matter. SMITE notches number 7, 7, 0, and 10 right now for the jungler for ISURUS. He is absolutely going nuts right now.
That looked really dicey for ISURUS. They leashed the Fire Giant at about 25% health just to find an early kill onto Cheetah, which was a nice play, but then they didn't completely leash it, so it kept hitting the members out of ISURUS.
Yeah.
Fragger got really low really quickly, and that allowed Valorous to find one quick kill, but they overcommitted too hard onto that support, and as a result, that was an easy 4-for-1 cleanup and a Fire Giant secure out of ISURUS.
I agree with you. Valorous really had a chance there to come back into this game because of a very sloppy engagement by ISURUS. The initial pick onto Cheetah was perfect. That's exactly what you want to do. Bait someone in, kill them, and then turn around and secure the objective. But Kha'Zix uses his Final Judgment to try and hit a full health member. You know, it just different calls there, it seemed, for ISURUS, but it doesn't matter because of how tanky Daylon is, level 14, and Valorous clearly came into this game with a game plan of shutting down the Sylvanas early. But we're 20 minutes in, he's level 14. It's time to try and change your strategy, and Valorous needs to do that if they want to find any sort of success in these later game team fights.
Unfortunately for Valorous, their composition didn't really work out the way they intended. Without any deaths onto Daylon, not finding those kills, they didn't really have the control around the mid-harpies as a result. You know, they made that one offensive play at that tier 1 mid-tower, but it really backfired quickly, and ISURUS has capitalized on it thus far with a huge experience lead thus far. Fragger with a level 19 to 15 against Forza, and with the Fire Giant out of ISURUS, this is the point where they're going to start grouping up as all 5 and looking for these Phoenixes.
You could tell just how confident ISURUS is as Daylon has picked up Sunder number 2 for the team on the Sylvanas. He says he doesn't need any more survivability. He's got the shell, he's got a ton of aura items, ton of HP as well. May as well go for a little bit of extra offense, and to be honest, Tolly, I don't really blame him. He's absolutely had a phenomenal game, 1, 0, and 10 so far for the support. But SMITE on this Hunbats has really been the storyline, I think. 7, 0, and 10 for him. 10 assists, matching that of Daylon. But look at the player damage, 3,000 above the next nearest member, who's Fragger.
And this is due to the build out of Fragger. He's been able to box out the Kernanos in that dual lane, but he doesn't have the Fatalis, instead electing to go for a lot of these damage hunters items.
Beltway, rooted there in the area between the left and mid-side Phoenix. Cheetah already falling very low, uses his Colossal Fury to get him out of that Wrath of Terra ultimate. Kraken is pretty big there out of Hadobin, but Kha'Zix makes him pay for stepping up that far. Number 3 for the mid laner. Adderban gets SMITE locked down and allows Byrock to put the first death onto the enemy jungler, but the rest of the team fight is going ISURUS' way.
2 for 1, not diving the Phoenix quite yet, relying on that Fire Giant sustain along with the Wisps. Daylon has to reset the Phoenix, trying to hold on as long as he can. The little baby is doing his best efforts to survive against this left side Phoenix. He took a lot of damage, but keep in mind that Wrath of Terra, trying to get on back though. Kha'Zix took a lot of poke.
He absolutely did, but these heals from Daylon are too good. And again, the pull onto Cheetah. The rest of ISURUS didn't trust. They were backing up, so Cheetah's going to be able to escape with his life, but just one of those heat check pulls from Daylon.
And that could have been a big upset here because Valorous, they did a good job defending. It was a 2 for 1. That's the best that they could possibly hope for. The Colossal Fury was extended by the Wrath of Terra and the Wisps, taking all that damage over time, which wasn't too much. Keeps the big baby ticking for a little bit longer, giving him more health regen, and as a result, that Phoenix, despite it does go down, it took quite a while, so you're only losing that one Phoenix. You still have some efforts to potentially steal away this Fire Giant, and particularly for this Poseidon player with a Krakens.
That's true, but looking at Hadobin's build, there's not a lot of power or penetration there totally. Going for the 3rd item, Fatalis, right after the Gem of Isolation. Yes, it gives Hadobin some more survivability, but I feel like Burst is what Valorous is really craving.
The utility Poseidon just doesn't synergize with the Burst potential setup though, trying to find a kill onto Daylon, proccing the Winged Blade as he runs back into the safety of his tier 1 tower. Could be an overcommit. Nice Wrath of Terra to counteract it, and the Kraken misses!
Another 3 ultimates for the mid laner, and Valorous pays once again. 2 dead already. You can notch number 3 there. SMITE with the double kill, almost to double digits. 3 dead for over 30 seconds apiece. And again, it's Valorous just overcommitting to the support.
It's just not the right target any longer. This Winged Blade has been the crucial pickup to avoid every member from Valorous. And ISURUS playing super safe despite finding a 3 for nothing with left side Phoenix exposed. And this late game having respawn timers of 30 seconds or longer. That's plenty of time to be able to grab a Phoenix, but want to play extremely safe as this is the Latin American Finals. Winner of here will advance the rest of the day.
That's absolutely right, and they've got a best of 5 to win here, Toli. So sometimes you don't want to try and burn yourself out with a crazy call like that, trying to maybe end the game in that scenario. Especially with that tier 2 tower still standing on that right-hand side, that Titan going to be a little bit tankier than ISURUS maybe wanted to bargain with. So instead they elect to pick up the Fire Giant, and they're pretty far ahead right now. Going to be able to knock down this tower and probably the remaining Phoenixes very easily.
So when I'm looking at Valorous and what he's been doing, what they've been successful at for the first time in this game was the solo lane pressure into the invade. We saw how effective Byrock was in finding kills onto Beltway, but they never kept the pressure into that solo lane. Finding the second speed buff invade would have allowed them to continue the pressure, but instead allowing ISURUS to just get back into the game.
And I think it was due to the back timers. Byrock didn't back for a long time, and so didn't have his boots to be able to try and invade. We see a lot of junglers who are trying to invade back for boots too, for a little bit of extra movement speed and power. There's the ultimate onto Fragger coming out of the Nemesis, but not a lot of follow-up damage. Cheetah already has to use that Colossal Fury just to try and act like a frontliner, but he's still only level 17. So difficult to stand in front of level 20 damage dealers when you're only 17.
Just buying some time, blinking into the backline, forcing the beast, petrify onto Arabon, getting completely deleted, and Kha'Zix with that hot triple kill.
The final judgment just erased 2 members, and ISURUS gonna claim the first game here handedly over Valorous. Valorous got off to a good start, Toli, but it wasn't enough. And again, I can't say it enough, Daylon